This video is gonna have a bit of a weird opening to it, I'll be honest. I don't really know how to start this one. Kirby's Adventure is a video game, and that's all I can really think to say about it. I have so many strong feelings on the game, so I mostly want to let the video speak for itself, before diving into both what makes it special and not so special. But before we dive any deeper in the video, if you like what you see and want to help me out, please consider thinking this video is the best by giving it a like, tell me what your thoughts are on Kirby's Adventure in the comments, and ring the notification bell after subscribing to really help me out. You can find me on Twitch, join my Discord, or follow either of one of my Twitters if you like me that much, but regardless, I appreciate it. With that said, it's a restless day in Dreamland as Kirby and the rest have lost their ability to dream. As it turns out, the Star Rod, which fuels the Fountain of Dreams, is missing. Who else does Kirby find bathing in the fountain than our favorite boss, for real this time, King Dedede. Kirby sets off through 7 different worlds to recover the pieces of the Star Rod that Dedede broke, restoring dreams for everyone in Dreamland. Also, Kirby draws himself on the pause screen. This face says it all. You thought my joke about Kirby's Dreamland being easy to explain was short? I can do this one in 2 words. Copy ability. Yeah, 2 words. That's a new record for me. Definitely deserving of the likes, comments, and subscriptions now. If Kirby's Dreamland introduced the series, then Kirby's Adventure is the one that really set it apart. In every respect, copy abilities are the biggest factor behind Kirby's success to this day. Not even in execution, just the idea of copying what an enemy can do, but with Kirby's own personal spin on it, a lot of which is doing 10,000 times better than whatever he inhales, was brilliant. For this power-up, you don't even need an item or an in-game currency or beating a powerful boss. You just walk up to an enemy and press B. 2 buttons, bam, a whole new world of possibilities opens up. Fortunately for everyone who played it, Kirby's Adventure did a really good job with making the copy abilities distinct and unique. They're much simpler than what we'd find in later games, but that's part of what makes them so much fun. In a game like Superstar, many abilities act differently if you're standing still, or running around, or jumping after running around, holding a direction. It can make it all feel like too much at times. But here, you press a button, Kirby does a move. Very rarely is there anything beyond that, and if there is, it's very easy to understand, like with Sword. You slash when you're on the ground, and you spin when you're in the air. Simple. The game presents itself around the copy ability so well. There are puzzles, combat, exploration, unique interactions, boss fights, the whole 9 yards that feel completely different depending on what ability you use. There are even some of these that restrict you with a certain ability, giving these moments an entirely different presence than the rest of the game. But regardless of what you're doing, the entire thing revolves around Kirby and what Kirby does best, which is now copying abilities. It's kind of funny, in a way, because you feel the effects of copy abilities the most after playing a game that doesn't have them. Case in point, the game that I covered yesterday. Nothing against Dreamland, but the replay value of that game comes through solid levels and the short length. That's a great way to make a fun game, but things are so much more sustainable here. Because you can copy abilities, all of them make going through each level feel different in its own way. Replayability is very high. A lot of the abilities introduced to this game are series staples too. I talked about Sword already, but anybody who's had a passing glance at Kirby over the years knows about stuff like Beam, or Fire, or Ice, Cutter, Spark, Sleep, Crash, Wheel, even my own personal favorite ability, Parasol, made its debut in this game. And coming back to the game years later, with all of the expanded movesets and balancing and such, these abilities still feel as fresh and fun as they always have. I'll even go to an absolute extreme and say that some of the abilities are at their best here. Any channel familiar knows that I'm going to say that Tornado is the most obvious standout ever, but even exclusive abilities like Ball and really strong ones that haven't felt the same sense, like UFO and Tornado. The fact that there's even one ability that feels like it's at its best here in the very first game is all you need to know. It just makes you think to yourself, like, wow, this really is a step above the rest. And okay, there's a lot of other reasons why this game could be considered the best. its incredible visuals, the excellent overall presentation, some of the best NES music there ever was, the game starting during the day and ending at night, you know, when you're dreaming, but the introduction and immediate home run of the copy abilities is really all you need. If they were implemented poorly or felt outdated, maybe things would be different. But as it is, the copy abilities morphing the game around them wholeheartedly works, and is why Kirby's Adventure is the best game in the series. Oh, I thought I was super clever before, needing only 2 words to describe why this game is so great. Well, I've got myself beat. I've got 1 word to describe why this game is the bottom of the barrel, and that word is lag. The game can boast whatever technical achievement that it wants, but when it gets in the way of the actual game itself, there's a problem. Speedrunners have to make sure that they move in specific ways as to not cause the game to completely fall apart, which really speaks for itself. And don't worry, the lag isn't the only issue. It is, however, the face of the big issue that holds the game back. It was far too ambitious. Normally, you could hardly blame a group for wanting to do so much. Otherwise, we just get the same game over and over again. But Kirby's Adventure went way too far, and when stronger alternatives were literally right there, the Super Nintendo was very much alive and well at this point, it's a lot easier to get frustrated that this game was for the NES. For example, the abilities themselves for sure were a good idea, and one that sounds like a programming nightmare. The lag, again, speaks for itself on how well the end product turned out, but there's a lot more to it than just that. I don't know if there was an ability quota or something, but they really liked having abilities that had no business being in the game. What is the difference between fire and ice? Why have freeze when you have ice, or burning when you have fire? Can't throw have been morphed with backdrop? What is even the point of light? Why are needle and spark practically the same, except one doesn't destroy the game with lag? I'm not even gonna go after easy targets here like sleep. Well, I mean, I went after light, but you know what I mean. The name of the game is supposed to be experimenting, finding your favorites and having fun expressing yourself through the way that you use them, but what it turns out being is a game of trial and error to find out which ones make the game the most tolerable. Because of this, the levels simply do not work, because they're designed around using abilities. And again, this wouldn't have been a problem at all on stronger hardware. Nothing would be lost if the game was simply for the Super Nintendo instead, and this is the only game in the series that has that problem. Other games have been made late into a console's life, sure, but they don't feel like molasses whenever too much is going on. Some like to claim that there's a lot of quote-unquote magic in Kirby's Adventure, but the only magic to find here is the overwhelming dopamine rush when you turn the game off. Wow, I really hit deep there, huh? Kirby's Dream Land is a fantastic showcase of making a simple, short game work. The levels are tight, Kirby is simple to control, and at the end of the day, it's fun. Even then, Dreamland had some impressive technical achievements for the Game Boy, and they didn't get in the way of the final product. If anything, they made the game even better. So when the very next one completely misses the mark, with the hardware necessary to see the team's vision through without butchering the experience right there, it's easy to see why Kirby's Adventure is the worst game in the series. Before getting into my final thoughts, once again, I did ask my Discord what their thoughts were on Kirby's Adventure. We had a lot more answers to this one than we did for Kirby's Dream Land, with some people even thinking that it was the best game on the NES. There were also people that had never even played it, some people that didn't even think it was that great and just okay, but nobody had anything bad to say about the music. Some even thought that it had perks over Nightmare in Dreamland, with Meta Knight throwing Kirby the invincibility candy for all kinds of hidden deeper story meaning. There was actually a very long talk about that one, but that's besides the point. Point is, even though not everybody liked Kirby's Adventure, many people really did. When I finally decided what the theme for this year's Kirby month was going to be, the best and worst for Kirby thing, Kirby's Adventure was my #1 hurdle that I knew I would need to cross. All of the reasons for this are very personal. Similar to Dreamland 1, I completely understand why there are people that don't like the game. I didn't bring up Nightmare in Dreamland because that came later, and I think it's only fair to judge games based on what they are, and compare it to what came before, but there are a lot of people who prefer that game on top of everything against Adventure that I had already said. Regardless, Adventure is one of my all-time favorite games. It was the first video game I ever played, it's probably the game I've replayed the most, and it even introduced Parasol. Yeah, I know, there's a lot of personal attachment here, but even ignoring all of that, I still think the game is wonderful. What they managed to achieve on the NES really should not have been possible, but none of that matters if the game isn't actually good. And out of pretty much any NES game that I have ever played, none of them can even compare. There is a lot of love here, and it's clear and easy to see every step of the way. Even some of the negatives I feel are overblown a bit. I ranted about the lag for a while earlier, but I just play devil's advocate with those. I don't actually think the lag is that bad. At the very least, it doesn't hurt the overall experience. I've never once thought that I could have done something if it weren't for the lag. When you know how to set it up, the lag can even be good for a laugh here and there. Even if the lag is actually a point of contention, compared to the positives, it's no contest. I can't even begin to describe how fun this game is to just play. When I said the game was designed around abilities, I really meant abilities. Plural. There are so many puzzles that are clearly meant to be solved with one ability, but if you're good enough, they can be solved with virtually any. Did you know that you can fight Krakow with an ability other than high jump if you float instead? Or that you can get through the Parasol Spike Room with a wheel? Or that you can demolish the bosses of 7-2 with ball? Even at their simplest, the abilities are fun to mess around with. Kirby is still great to destroy everything with, new moves and all, so there's never a low point in terms of control. Level design is engaging and rewards creativity, boss fights are a fun change of pace, and the levels even thematically fit together. They're memorable too. I remember 7-2 being the mini-boss rush, or Butter Building having a few levels with the rotating buildings in the back, or this specific room in Yogurt Yard with the current pushing Kirby up from below, and how much faster you go with something like High Jump or Ball. I'm sorry, I know I'm just rambling at this point, but I love Kirby's Adventure so much. I've played it a million times, and while I'd love to say I'll play it a million more, that's a lie. We all know I'm going to be playing it more than just that.